Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Katrina Marie, and as always, I'm here to make sure that you become the very best possible applicant before you click submit. And before we get into today's topic, I want to ensure that you are following my Instagram page at Katrina Marie Consulting, and make sure that you hit that red button below and hit the bell so you never miss any of my new upcoming content on my YouTube channel. So today's topic is all about, do you want to study in the USA? And we're going to be talking about parts of the application. But before we get into that, I just want you to know that more than 1 million international students attend university or college in the US every year, and that number is slowly growing. So I want to ensure that the US is one of the most diverse educational systems that you could probably attend. And if you can apply to the US, which is one of the most complex application processes, it will make applying anywhere else in the world pretty easy and straightforward. So let's just dive straight into this topic, and let's get into some of the things that you should consider before applying. Because let's face it, the US is a very large country. There are there are 50 states, and there are some major cities, and there's a lot to the US that many people don't really take into consider when they are considering applying to the US. So again, location is definitely one thing you should definitely consider. Many people pick a location that they are familiar with because it's popular, or it's a major city, or it has a large airport, or maybe they have family members nearby that can, spend time with them if you're feeling a bit homesick. But location is definitely an important factor, and that leads into some other points, which is cost of living. If you're moving to a major city, chances are the cost of living will be quite high, and you'll need to be able to afford to do things such as eat, go out with your friends, transportation, things like that. So it's important to understand that no matter the location or the school, the cost of living will also match that as well. Another factor to consider is the weather. Many students don't consider this when they are picking a location. And as you know, like I said, the US is a very large country with various types of weather patterns, and throughout the year you get some of the 4 seasons. Some are sunny all year round, some are rainy. So you need to make sure that you're comfortable with certain climates and certain weather patterns. So again, if you're coming from a very hot climate or humid climate and you go to a place with mountains where it snows, it might be a big adjustment for you. So make sure that you're comfortable with that change. Another thing to consider is things to do nearby the campus, because let's face it, you're not going to be studying 24/7. You are going to be a young adult wanting to develop your interests, possibly work part-time, go out with friends, and you're not going to be in the library studying on your weekends. So let's just face it, you want to have a little bit of a life. So are there things for you to do outside of the campus? And that's something that a lot of people don't consider. They just think, I'm just going to go to school and that's it. They don't think about the big picture of what it's actually going to be like living somewhere. So I would like for you to consider, are there things for you to do where you can develop your interests or further your interests that you are used to doing? Another thing I'd like you to consider is safety. As you know, no country is perfect, and the US is definitely not. So make sure that you're picking a place where you feel safe. Safety and well-being is probably the first thing that one should consider, but gets overlooked quite frequently. So when you're looking at a location and a place to live, and if you're looking at living on campus, what does the campus security look like? Campus police look like? How do you feel safe in that learning environment? I want you to consider that as well. Are there clubs and organizations for you to get involved with on campus? Are there sports teams, athletics, intramurals? Those are also things to consider when you're looking at a location to move to or campus to choose. And also food. Let's face it, as an international student, you're probably going to miss your family's cooking or local cuisine, and you would like to probably find a city or a town that might have some food that might remind you of home. And this is another thing that many students overlook, especially when you start to become homesick. So food can be a bit comforting. Now let's get into the different parts of the application. Now that I've given you a little bit of overview of things to consider before you apply, let's get into the nuts and bolts. So you need to be filling out the application itself. Different institutions in the US use different platforms depending on the school. They may use the Common Application, they may use a different type of platform for you to apply. You might have to apply directly. It just depends. So it's important for you to figure out how you are going to apply and if you are going to use a certain platform, okay? The next bit is writing your personal statement, essay, and any optional or required supplemental questions that you would need to complete. This is another part of the application that takes a bit of time and a bit of reflection is the best word. So make sure that you are filling this out with support and somebody that can look over it for you so your voice can be heard and the university can understand your why. Why are you applying to this school? Why is this school a good fit for you? And like I said, this part of the application is probably one of the most time-consuming parts of it. Okay? You will be asking for letters of recommendation, usually from your most current teachers that are teaching you. I recommend a minimum of 2 letters. If a university requires more than that, they will indicate usually 2 teachers and maybe a counselor. So it's important that you ask these people well in advance, and I have a video on what is a letter of recommendation where I go into more detail about it, but it's good for you to ask that person or persons well in advance so you can have those letters ready for the deadline, okay? The next bit is making sure that you have the grades or grade point average GPA in order to apply to this school. Now, a lot of schools in the US, they don't advertise the minimum GPA that you should be applying with. And there's a reason for that, because they don't want to create a bunch of anxiety and stress that if you don't have this GPA, if you don't have these grades, you're not getting in. Yes, there's a bit of ambiguity and mystery, but when you go through the different parts of the application, one part they might look at more than the grades. So maybe they care more about your essays, or maybe they care more about how you are as a learner and what your teachers have to say about you. So again, the grades are not the end-all be-all. That's why they don't advertise it. Of course, very competitive schools want high grades and high GPAs. That's something that we all know. But they're still not going to advertise it. They're going to advocate for you to paint a full picture of who you are. And like I said, I have another video on what is holistic admissions, which I encourage you to go back and look. And it goes more into detail about that process. Okay, so the next thing that they will be asking usually is your list of extracurricular activities. They want to know who you are outside of the classroom, who you've become since you've gotten involved with your volunteer experiences, clubs and organizations, maybe you're on a sports team. So they want to know a little bit more about you and how long you've been doing that. Again, I don't recommend listing 20 different things and being in and out of the clubs and organizations and just attending meetings. I'd rather you put 1 or 2 really good examples and talk about your experience in that. Maybe you were in Model United Nations and you started off as a 9th grader, and every year you developed your skills and you've changed positions and you've grown into maybe more senior positions over the years, and now you're mentoring middle school kids on MUN, and that can be your story. You know what I mean? I'd rather you talk about 1 or 2 experiences and really go into detail about how it's shaped you as an individual. Okay? Another thing I'd like for you to consider, especially if you're going into a career path that requires a portfolio, is to start gathering bits on how you're going to present yourself. You need to look at their requirements of what they are looking for, especially if it's an art school or a creative type of program. They're going to want a portfolio of some sort. Some of the universities will want a resume. So again, you'll be able to list some of the points mentioned above on the resume, and it's always good to have a professional look over your resume to make sure that it's clear, concise, and it really highlights your strengths and what you've been able to accomplish. And last but certainly not least is your interview. So Some schools have an interview process where you talk with an alumni, and it's important for you to feel prepared for that. Usually after you've submitted the application and they've reviewed it, they will invite you for an interview, and they're usually pretty informal, and they sometimes give you the questions in advance, but it's always good to practice and have a mock interview with somebody that can give you some feedback. So there you have it. Here are the parts of the application for applying to the United States. And if you have any questions or you feel that somebody can benefit from this video, please share this information. This is how my channel grows, is when you share this information with someone you love and you care about. So I hope to catch you all on the next video.